This evening we're going to look at Enoch. And Enoch is going to be found in the genealogy in Genesis chapter 5. And very little is said about Enoch at all past Genesis 5 until we get to the book of Jude. And Jude tells us something about Enoch we simply didn't know from Moses. And truly, this is quite often a class that I'm teaching, such as our Wednesday morning class. I stumble across something or see something and think I need to do a sermon concerning that. This evening we have Enoch, and it goes like this. This is in the genealogy. He is seventh from Adam, and you can count it yourself that he is seventh from Adam. But we have Jared. Jared is the father of Enoch. Jared lived 162 years and begot Enoch. In this particular chapter, it is showing us the years from creation to the birth of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. This is this chapter. Then we go on to chapter 11. And chapter 11, Genesis 11, will take us from Shem, from Shem, going all the way to Abram. And we can know the year that each of these were born. So we can know the exact date that Abram was born by way of after creation, because that's the timeline it's giving us. Those are the years being used. We're under the Gregorian calendar. Creation's not under the Gregorian calendar. That came a lot later. And God is showing us the age of the earth, as a matter of fact. And I take this very literal because there's no reason to take it figuratively. And other Scripture is taking it literally. So, Jared lives 162 years and begot Enoch. And without going through the earlier verses in this chapter, that's 622 AC, after creation. Of course, Adam is created 1 AC. There is no year 0. There is year 1. Year 1 AC. This is 622 years after the creation of Adam. We have Enoch being born. And of course, this is in the very early days of the earth. Now, Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, so someone like Enoch would have never seen the garden. Or if they saw it, they couldn't enter the garden. It's possible, and now that I'm thinking about it, it's possible that they could have seen from the outside, but never could have gone inside. After he begot Enoch, that's Jared, Jared lived 800 years and had sons and daughters. Extremely long lifespans in those days. It was a different world altogether than what we have today. And we know that not just because of the biblical text, that's enough, but also archaeology does show that this world was very different in its ancient past. There are places that are frozen tundra today with permafrost. Permafrost meaning you get only a little, in the height of summer, you get only a little bit into the ground and you hit frozen dirt because it remains frozen underneath there. That there are places on the earth that are tundra, and there's evidence of animals having been there, their bones, even frozen remains, and also of plants and the like that could not live there today. Now, after he begot Enoch, Jared lived 800 years and had sons and daughters. Never think that any of these just had a son and that was it. This is the one being named is important because it is taking us to Abram. That's where it's taking us to. And it's not going through every line possible because that would be a huge book and quite complicated on top of that. This is taking us from Adam to Abram, who would become Abraham. So, all the days of Jared were 962 years and he died. I take that literal because I don't have a reason not to. That they were made of the same material that we're made of. They weren't made out of stainless steel. They weren't made out of stone. They're made out of the same stuff. It's just that the world was very different then. And if people lived longer, everything else would have lived longer too on the earth. And very different, but there still was death. And of course, from sin entering into the world, death also entered into the world. Now, we come to Enoch. Enoch lived 65 years and begot Methuselah. He is the father of Methuselah. And Methuselah is born 687 AC, after creation. And we know that we know when Enoch was born, we know that he was 65 years old, and so we have when Methuselah was born. After he begot Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years and had sons and daughters. So Methuselah is not the only child he had. He had sons, other sons, and it's not to say that Methuselah was his first child. These are listed because it is a line that is going to the Messiah, going to Abraham, and then on beyond Abraham to that of Judah, and Jesse, and David, and Solomon, and going down there till we get to the Christ. So don't think that Methuselah is his firstborn. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. He's there for a different reason. After he begot Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years and had sons and daughters. So all the days of Enoch were 365 years. Now that's not near as long as his father or his son. But we see something in this. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. And this is going to occur at 987 years after creation. God took him. And this is what makes him very, very unique in all this, is that Enoch doesn't die on this earth. Enoch walked with God, and he was taken by God. All right, and he did not live at 900 or whatever years on this earth. He and then die and was buried. He is taken by God. And I want us to look at something. I made mention of this last week when we were talking about Amos, but I want to look at something now. Men knew something. Men knew something, and the information had to come from God, and there were prophets in the antediluvian world. What does antediluvian mean? It means before the flood. It's a big word. Okay, it just means before the flood, before Noah's flood, not just any deluge, not just any flood, the worldwide flood of Noah. And that there were prophets in those days. Now, not too long ago, it was in one of my classes, I spoke of that when Moses wrote, now this is considerably later than this, when Moses wrote concerning the flood, that I personally believe the Hebrew people who would have just come out of Egypt, they would be in the wilderness at that point. When he wrote Genesis and concerning the flood, the Hebrew people already knew about the flood. They already knew about it. Now, they wouldn't have known all the details that are going to be put in that are inspired by God, word for word that Moses puts in, such as the dimensions of the ark, how big it was in various, and what it's made out of specifically. They may not have known that at all, but they would have known about the flood. They wouldn't have been ignorant about it. And why do I say that? Because the Egyptians were not ignorant of it. The Egyptians knew about it. The Mesopotamians knew about it. It would have been something in that Abram would have heard. The story was everywhere. Now I say that now to say this, that before Noah, I think we can understand, before Noah's even born, I think we can understand that they knew a flood was coming. The prophets did. There were prophets before Noah They weren't writing prophets. That won't be until Moses. But you have these prophets that are there. They know too much. They know some things. And I'll show you what I mean. Enoch named his son Methuselah. Now we know Enoch was a prophet. We know that. Aside from the fact that he's walked with God, he's taken by God, but we will see his prophecy in the book of Jude. Jude will reveal what that is. All right? But Methuselah's name means when he is dead, it shall be sent. Who names their son that? Who names a baby boy that? When he is dead, it is sent. That knows something, because when he's born, there's 969 years of life, and then something's going to be sent. Now, it's not specific as what's going to be sent, but when we see the year he died, something is sent, and we don't have to wait for it. It's the flood. He dies the year of the flood. Did he die in the flood? Well, it doesn't say. The likelihood is he would have died a few days before the flood. The likelihood, in my mind anyway, and that would be the harbinger. That would be the note of he died, now it's coming. All right, because he dies, the flood comes in the second month of that year, in the 17th day of the month. Of the second month in that year. So there wasn't a whole lot of time in there in that year. So Methuselah would have died just a few days beforehand. All right, so he dies in the year 1656 AC. That is the year of the flood. And all you have to do is go to Genesis chapter 5 and start putting the math together. Now, if you want that already done, I don't have it here, but I'll gladly give you a paper that I handed out in my class. You'll have to wait on it, but I'll gladly give you that paper. It is the second month, the 17th day of the month of the year 1656, and that's from Genesis 7:11. Okay? That's when that is. And that is, the flood is what was sent. Methuselah would have had to have died just prior to this, either a few days beforehand or the day of. Doesn't matter. But what his name means will come to pass. All right? That's knowing something. Knowing something's going to happen when he dies. And that would mean that he is being named by a prophet. And of course, Enoch knew something. He knew something 969 years before the flood would happen. He knew it. That's why he names his son that. And we have Lamech. Lamech, now that's the grandson of Enoch. You have Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech. Lamech is the grandson of Enoch. He names his son Noah, and Noah means rest. All right, so that's not quite as impressive as when he dies, it will be sent. But Enoch says the reason why he called his son rest. He tells us why. And he called his name Noah, saying, "This one will comfort us concerning our work and the toil of our hands because of the ground which the Lord has cursed." Enoch says that. And he is saying that his son is going to live through something. He is saying that his son is going to see something. And his son is going to be seeing a rest, evidently. His son is going to be seeing things being changed in his lifetime. How? And I think Enoch knew. Or rather, I think Lamech knew. I think Lamech had to have known that that would have come about after the flood. That they, in fact, knew about the flood before it occurred because God had already revealed it to them. As a matter of fact, if you read Genesis chapter 6, when God speaks to Noah, he begins to tell Noah the dimensions of an ark and the specifics of an ark without even telling him yet there's a flood. He doesn't say, I'm bringing a flood to destroy everything. This is what you need to do. He doesn't say that. He actually tells him what he is to build, and then he tells him why. And I think that Noah probably already knew. And that's just me thinking, because Enoch knew too much, Lamech knows too much, and that would have been passed on down to Noah in this. Now, we come to this, just that Lamech knew something 600 years before it even happened. All right, whereas his grandfather knew concerning his own son, that of Methuselah, of what would occur when his son Methuselah died. Now, Amos, this is what we were discussing last week. Surely the Lord does nothing unless He reveals a secret to His servants, the prophets. And in fact, I think we can see that if Enoch was a prophet, and he was, that it is very, very likely that he was told about the flood. But even if he wasn't told about the flood, he was told about something that would come much, much later than the flood. And we'll see that just a second in the book of Jude. Enoch is a prophet. Unlike the others, all the others in Genesis chapter 5, unlike all the others, he does not die on the earth. Enoch is taken by God. His prophecy is quoted much later in Scripture. And he is, in fact, a prophet. Jude 14. Jude only has one chapter. Verse 14. Now Enoch, the seventh from Adam. All right, you can go back to Genesis 5 and you can count the generations. Adam, Seth is number 2. Adam is 1. Seth is number 2. And just go on down and you'll see that Enoch is number 7. That is why I take Genesis chapter 5 very literally. Because Jude's taking it that way. And so you have the 7th from Adam. He prophesied, notice what Jude says about Enoch. 7th from Adam prophesied about these men also. All right, what men? Jude has been writing about false teachers that were coming. False teachers that actually were already beginning to arrive. False teachers that were destroying or trying to pervert. They were perverting the gospel of Christ. That's what they were doing. And Jude speaks about these false prophets, of these false teachers. And here he says, Enoch prophesied about them also. Which means Enoch was given a whole lot of information to be able to prophesy against such things. It'd be things way beyond his lifetime. Way beyond. And just going back to Amos, unless he reveals his secret to his servants, the prophets, which means God was doing that early. And we'll see something else also that is being said, that Jude actually said. He says this, behold, the Lord comes with 10,000 of His saints. That's judgment. This is, He is born in the 600s, 600 years or so after creation, and Enoch is already speaking about final judgment. He's already speaking about it. It is already there. And why wouldn't it be? Sin had entered into the world. There had to be a way out of sin. People had to have the fear of God, had to have the understanding of what's going to happen after you die. Sure, you can expect a long lifespan of 900-something years. Maybe, maybe not. Abel certainly didn't get that. But regardless, there is something beyond that. And behold, the Lord comes with 10,000 of His saints. Enoch prophesied about final judgment, and also these same men that Jude is warning about. He is prophesying about this going way back. Now, we continue with Enoch's quote. To execute judgment on all, to convict all who are ungodly among them all, their ungodly deeds which they have committed in an ungodly way, of all the harsh things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. Let's go through this bit by bit. To execute judgment on all. Everyone will be judged. Everyone will be judged. Now he's going to make a distinction. But everyone is going to be judged. And here Enoch is saying this prior to the flood. Everyone is going to be judged. And he would include us in that, even though we would miss the flood by quite a while. But he says to convict all who are ungodly among them. That means there will be some that he's going to judge as righteous, some that he's going to judge as innocent, some that he's going to reward. But there are others that he's going to convict who are ungodly. Now, I made mention of this maybe last week, maybe a couple of weeks, I can't remember, but I want to mention it again. There is the claim that is out there. Let me get back to this. There is a claim that is out there that this quote comes directly from the book of Enoch. There is no legitimate book of Enoch. It doesn't exist. It's not in the Apocrypha. It wasn't put in that. I'm not exactly sure when it may have been written, but there is this thing that floats around, and you probably will hear of it at some point or other. There is no book of Enoch that is inspired of God. And this is the point that needs to be made concerning the supposed book of Enoch. How'd they translate the thing? I'd like to know what language it's in to begin with and how they translated it, because Enoch lived before Babel. He would have been speaking the same language that would have come out of the Garden of Eden. Nobody on this earth after Babel spoke that language anymore. It's gone. I'd like to even see what it looks like. You can't translate that. It would be, well, I don't know what it would take. It's not as though you'd have something like a Rosetta Stone that's going to help you in any of this. But that the book of Enoch is nothing but another fraud that's been put out. Now, we just go to this. Ungodly deeds, ungodly way. These are the very things that Christ hates. This is what He's going to be judging. And that this word ungodly is being used repeatedly through this. And the Greek word that is being used by Jude is asabes. Asabes. It means morally corrupt, shameless, decadent, perverted, degenerate. That's what it means. And of course, that to be ungodly means to be the absolute opposite of what God is. If God is love, ungodly is hate. If godly means morally good, ungodly means morally bankrupt, morally corrupt, rotting from the inside. It means perverted. And we have ungodly deeds, ungodly way. It is the deeds of the perverted, the ways of the perverted. That is what is being spoken. And the harsh things which ungodly sinners have spoken against Him. Against who? Against the Lord. Against Jehovah. And it is blasphemy. It is to speak out against God. Did that happen in Enoch's day? I have no doubt that it did. No doubt, it probably in Enoch's day, there would have been that sliding down a slippery slope, sliding down of that moral corruption that destroyed that world, or God sent a flood to put an end to it. There was just the thinking of wicked plans, wicked schemes, wickedness all the time, bloodshed all the time, and God puts an end to it. But you have, even in those days, they are speaking against God. Well, they have the same Creator we do. And they would very well have understood that they, unless you, of course, you could have atheists in that day just refusing to believe that there's any God whatsoever. They would have been among the ungodly. But it doesn't take long for humanity to begin to be idolatrous. It doesn't take long at all. It's pretty quick, as a matter of fact. And in this, Enoch is given a lot of information that just, he's just a few centuries from creation, and he's already speaking about judgment. But, all right, we would have been even less years than that, much less than that, of Adam and Eve being in the garden and God speaking from there concerning the Christ. They would have known of someone who is going to be born and take care of sin. They would have known that as well. Adam and Eve would have passed that down. They would have passed it down to Abel. They would have passed that down to Seth. No doubt they had passed it down to Cain, and it didn't matter with him too much, and for any other child that they had. But Enoch is this seventh from Adam, and God does, in fact, warn many, many years before something major is going to occur. And we just ask, what's the next major thing? What's the next thing that's supposed to happen? It's final judgment. Has God given us ample warning of that? Well, we could say, obviously, yes. At least 2,000 years if we look at the New Testament, but it's been more than that if we look at what Enoch was saying in his day. It's been from the very beginning that he's been warning about final judgment. It's closer now than it was in Enoch's day. It's much closer. But we still don't know when that is going to occur. Now, God has given us all the information we need. He has given us everything we need concerning having a sacrifice for us that is going to take away the sins of the world. That sacrifice that is the redemption price of where we don't have to be under sin anymore. The debt, the weight, and all of that can be taken away. The guilt, all of that can be taken away by the love of Christ and what He did for us, dying for all. That is love. That is complete love. Do we respond to that? This evening, we need to look at our lives. We need to examine where we are and what needs to be adjusted, let's adjust. What needs to be done, let's do it. Greater dedication, better servants, putting Him more where He needs to be, and that's first in our life. A greater love, a greater faith, a greater understanding. Let's have those things and work toward being the servants He wants us to be. This evening, if you need to respond to the invitation, we ask that you come as we stand and sing.